You know what's really hilarious? The fact that an advanced alien civilization capable of faster-than-light travel, antimatter weaponry, and perfect universal translators decided that their greatest achievement would be turning the galaxy into their personal safari park. I mean, really? That's what you do with all that technology? Start a cosmic version of extreme big game hunting? The Krasthul certainly thought so. Standing an average of 8 feet tall, with iridescent scales that shifted colors like oil on water and retractable claws that could slice through reinforced steel, they were the apex predators of their homeworld. But apparently dominating one planet wasn't enough for these overachieving lizards. No, they had to prove their superiority by hunting every sentient species they could find. Oh, look at us with our fancy quantum phase cloaking devices and our plasma rifles. Aren't we just the most evolved thing since sliced xenomorph? Their hunting preserves were works of art, I'll give them that. Entire planets terraformed into deadly playgrounds, each one crafted to provide the perfect challenge for their prestigious hunting parties. Imagine the most beautiful landscapes you've ever seen, then add flesh-eating plants, automated defense systems, and environmental hazards that would make Australia look like a petting zoo. The Krasthul called them the proving grounds, we called them hell. I remember my first glimpse of their handiwork. I was Commander Elena Reyes back then, leading a security detail on the colony world of New Montana. Beautiful place, really. Rolling plains, twin moons, perfect for raising space cattle if you're into that sort of thing. We thought the biggest threat would be the local wildlife or maybe some pirates. We were wrong. So devastatingly wrong. They came during our harvest festival. Because of course they did. Why hunt humans when they're scattered and alert, when you can wait for them to gather in one place and get drunk on fermented grain? The first plasma bolt took out our communications array. The second destroyed the power grid. In the darkness that followed, their scaled forms moved like shadows, picking us off one by one. I survived because I was paranoid. Well, tactical is the official term. But let's be honest, I was the colony's resident conspiracy theorist who insisted on building hidden bunkers and maintaining old-school radio equipment. Funny how being paranoid isn't really paranoia when there actually are aliens out to get you. From my hidden observation post, I watched them, studied them, learned their patterns and protocols. The Krasthul weren't just hunting us, they were collecting us. Each kill was recorded, scored, and added to their grand tournament rankings. They even had commentators, for crying out loud. Picture a sports broadcast, but instead of touchdown replays, you get slow-motion footage of humans being hunted down. And here we see Grand Hunter Vex Thor using the classic plasma net technique. Oh, magnificent form. The way the prey's nervous system lights up before collapse, simply breathtaking. That's going to score high with the judges. I spent 3 days in that bunker, documenting everything. When the rescue ships finally arrived, they found me surrounded by datapads filled with notes on Krasthul hunting techniques, weapons specifications, and social hierarchies. The brass took one look at my intel and immediately transferred me to special operations. Now I go by Ghost, partly because I'm legally dead according to colony records, but mostly because that's what I've become. A phantom that haunts the Krasthul hunting grounds, gathering intelligence and occasionally ensuring that some of their prey mysteriously disappears before they can claim their trophies. But watching isn't enough anymore. Not after what I've seen. Not after learning that New Montana was just one of dozens of human colonies being used for their sick game. The Krasthul think they're the greatest hunters in the galaxy. Laughs darkly. Oh, honey, you haven't seen anything yet. Because while you were busy playing your little games, you forgot the most important rule of hunting. Sometimes the prey learns to hunt back. And I am a very good student. Here's a pro tip: if you're going to infiltrate an alien hunting guild, don't go in looking like a human. I mean, that should be obvious, right? Fortunately, the Krasthul weren't the only advanced species out there. The Morphians, a race of shapeshifters who'd managed to stay off the Krasthul's radar, were more than happy to help once I explained what I needed. All it took was some DNA samples and a few million credits. Don't ask where Special Ops got that kind of money. So there I was, strutting into the Grand Hunting Lodge on Krasthul Prime, wearing the borrowed form of a Centaurian noble, all crystalline appendages and floating orbs of light. The receptionist, a particularly smug-looking Krasthul with gold-tipped scales, barely glanced at my credentials before ushering me in. Lady Zixiaa, we are honored by your interest in our noble sport, she purred, managing to sound both servile and condescending at the same time. Your reputation for exotic tastes precedes you. Oh, honey, you have no idea. The lodge was exactly what you'd expect from a bunch of wealthy murder hobos with too much time on their hands. Trophy walls stretched for miles, displaying preserved specimens from across the galaxy. I spotted at least 3 human heads, perfectly preserved and mounted like prized deer. My fingers twitched toward the concealed plasma dagger in my crystalline form, but I kept my cool. Soon, I promised them silently. Lady Zixaya, a booming voice echoed across the grand hall. Welcome, welcome. We so rarely get Centaurians in our establishment. And there he was, Grand Hunter Vex Thor himself. Standing nearly 10 feet tall, his scales shifting between deep purple and midnight blue, he cut an impressive figure. Cybernetic enhancements glinted at his joints, and a cape made from what looked like flayed Andromedian silk rippled behind him. Round his neck hung a necklace of varied teeth, his most prized kills. I counted 3 human molars among them. Grand Hunter, I bowed with precisely calculated deference. Your reputation spans galaxies. I simply had to see the famous hunting grounds for myself. He preened literally, his scales flaring in a display of pride. Then you must allow me to give you the grand tour. We've just installed some fascinating new technologies in our latest preserve. The next few hours were simultaneously the most enlightening and nauseating of my life. Vex Thor took me through their research and development labs, showing off their latest hunting tech with all the enthusiasm of a child with new toys. This, he declared, holding up what looked like a simple dart, is our newest innovation, neural trackers. They lodge in the prey's nervous system, allowing us to monitor their fear responses in real time. It adds a whole new dimension to the scoring system. Fascinating, I purred, while mentally cataloging ways to disable them. But surely some prey manages to remove them. Vex Thor laughed, a sound like rocks in a garbage disposal. Impossible. Once embedded, they can only be deactivated by our specialized equipment. See this frequency modulator here. Thanks for that information, you overconfident lizard. The tour continued through their armory, where I learned about the weaknesses in their supposedly perfect cloaking technology disrupted by specific ultraviolet frequencies, and their training facilities. Where I discovered their environmental suits had a critical flaw near the joint service note to self-aim for the knees. But the real goldmine came when Vex Thor, thoroughly impressed by my enthusiastic interest, invited me to view their planning room. Huge holographic maps displayed their current and future hunting grounds, including 12 human colonies they had yet to visit. We found humans to be particularly entertaining prey, Vex Thor explained, pulling up detailed biological scans. They're not the strongest or fastest, but they have this fascinating tendency to be unpredictable. Oh, I kept my voice neutral, even as I memorized the colony coordinates. Most species follow logical patterns when hunted. They either fight or flee in predictable ways. Humans, though, he shook his head in bemused admiration. We once cornered a female in a dead-end canyon. Instead of surrendering or trying to fight, she grabbed our bait animal, highly toxic, mind you, and threw it at our hunting party's faces. The spines nearly took out Grand Hunter Zexkar's eye. Completely illogical, but surprisingly effective. I remembered that woman. I'd trained her myself before. Well before. Of course, Vex Thor continued, his voice darkening with pleasure. We still caught her in the end. Her skull makes a lovely centerpiece in my private collection. That's the thing about predators like the Krasthul. They're so convinced of their superiority that they never stop to wonder if their prey might be playing a longer game. They never considered that humans, with our long history of hunting larger, stronger creatures, might understand something fundamental about being the underdog. They never wondered if, perhaps, we were learning from every encounter, adapting, evolving. As I left the lodge that evening, my borrowed crystalline form reflecting the setting sun, I transmitted a heavily encrypted data packet to Special Ops. Everything I'd learned, their technologies, their weaknesses, their future targets. But most importantly, I'd learned their pride would be their downfall. Because Grand Hunter Vex Thor had unknowingly given me the perfect weapon, their own scoring system. And I was about to turn their little game into something they never expected. A hunt where they were the ones being rated. And honey, I'm a very harsh judge. Have you ever had to watch your own species being hunted while pretending to enjoy it? Let me tell you, it's not an experience I'd recommend. But there I was in my crystalline Centaurian disguise, standing on the observation deck of Vex Thor's personal hunting vessel, trying to make appreciative noises as his crew tracked a group of colonists through the forests of New Arcadia. Notice how they've split into 3 groups, Vex Thor commented, his scales rippling with excitement. Quite clever, really. They think they're dividing our forces. No, you arrogant lizard. They're setting up a triple ambush and you're falling for it. I recognized the tactics. These weren't just random colonists. They were ex-military, probably part of the resistance cells I'd helped train. Through the ship's advanced monitoring systems, I could see them laying primitive but effective traps, punji pits covered with local vegetation, tripwires connected to improvised explosives, and positions perfect for crossfire. "Shall we deploy the neural trackers?" asked Vex Thor's second-in-command, a nasty piece of work named Krulvak. "Not yet," Vex Thor purred. "Let's see what they do first. Lady Zixai, I should witness how unpredictable these creatures can be." "Oh, you have no idea, buddy." The hunt proceeded exactly as I expected. The Kraz Thul hunting party split up, taking the bait. That's when I made my move, pretending to be fascinated by their ship's tracking technology. "These sensor arrays are remarkable," I cooed, placing my crystalline appendage on the control panel. "The resolution is incredible." What they didn't notice was the microscopic quantum transmitters I was leaving behind courtesy of Special Ops RD Department, each one capable of broadcasting the ship's location across subspace. The first explosion took out 2 hunters. The second created enough confusion for 3 colonists to slip away into a hidden tunnel system. The Kraz Thul were beside themselves with glee at the challenging prey. Then something went wrong. One of the colonists, a young man barely out of his teens, broke from the plan. Instead of retreating deeper into the tunnel network, he tried to rescue a fallen comrade. Brave, but stupid. The kid had no chance against Vex Thor's neural trackers. I had to make a choice: maintain my cover or save the kid. "Ah, screw it." "Oh my," I exclaimed, pretending to stumble against the weapons control panel. How embarrassingly clumsy of me. The ship's targeting system accidentally locked onto a nearby rock formation. The resulting blast caused a landslide that just happened to block the Kraz Thul's line of sight to the young colonist. Vex Thor's head snapped around, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on me. "Leanne." "Unfortunate accident," he said slowly, studying my crystalline form with newfound intensity. "Indeed," I replied, maintaining my aloof Centaurian demeanor. "How disappointing to have interfered with your hunt. Perhaps I should refrain from touching your excellent equipment." His scales shifted to a deep, suspicious purple. For a moment I thought he'd seen through my disguise. But then he laughed, that horrible grinding sound again. "Your enthusiasm makes you careless, Lady Zixia. But no matter, we have more prey to track." The hunt continued for another 3 hours. In the end, most of the colonists escaped through the tunnel network, though the Kraz Thul counted it as a success because they'd managed to capture 2. I had to stand there, nodding appreciatively, as they bragged about their trophies. But I'd accomplished my mission. Every major vessel in their hunting fleet now carried my quantum trackers. More importantly, I'd confirmed something crucial: these monsters were so convinced of their superiority that they'd ignore obvious suspicious behavior if it came wrapped in a wealthy enough package. As I prepared to leave, Vex Thor pulled me aside. "You know, Lady Zixia," he rumbled, "there's something unusual about you. Something familiar." I felt my borrowed heart skip a beat, but kept my voice steady. "How intriguing. Perhaps we've met at some other hunting exhibition." Perhaps his cybernetic eye whirred again. "Will you be joining us for the Grand Hunt next month? We've discovered a particularly promising human colony." I bowed deeply, hiding my expression. "I wouldn't miss it for all the worlds in the galaxy. Because that's where this all ends, you scale-covered bastard. That's where the hunters become the hunted." As my shuttle departed, I could still feel Vex Thor's gaze on me. He sensed something was off, but his pride wouldn't let him believe that his prey could be this clever. His mistake. His last mistake. You know what's funnier than watching a bunch of apex predators fall for an obvious trap? Watching them rush headlong into it while congratulating themselves on their cleverness. The leaked information about the secret human military colony spread through the Kraz Thul hunting circles like wildfire. "Elite soldiers," they whispered. "Special forces. The ultimate prey." I may have borrowed some classified documents about Earth's defunct Spartan program to add a little spice to the story. Hook, line, and sinker, darlings. The Grand Hunting Lodge was buzzing with activity. Hunters from across the galaxy arrived in their flashiest vessels, each hoping to claim the glory of bringing down a human super soldier. Their excitement was almost cute, like watching children get worked up over a rigged carnival game. "I heard they can punch through reinforced steel," one young hunter boasted. "My sources say they've been genetically enhanced," another chimed in. Vex Thor, naturally, claimed the right to lead the hunt. "This will be my masterpiece," he declared during the pre-hunt feast, "the ultimate proof of Kraz Thul's superiority." I watched from my crystalline disguise as he unveiled his latest hunting technology, an enhanced neural tracker system that could supposedly predict prey movement patterns. The other hunters oohed and ahed appropriately. "Thanks for the demo, buddy. Really helped us work out the countermeasures." What they didn't know was that every piece of their vaunted technology had been thoroughly studied and compromised. Those quantum transmitters I'd planted, they weren't just tracking devices, they were broadcasting every technical specification of their hunting gear to our RD team. For 3 weeks, we'd been preparing the colony on New Thermopylae. The name should have been their first clue, but apparently, Kraz Thul hunting schools don't teach ancient Earth military history. Throughout the carefully constructed settlement, we positioned our surprises. Artificial neural signatures to confuse their trackers. Electromagnetic pulse generators calibrated to the exact frequency of their cloaking devices. Ultraviolet strobe systems that would turn their precious invisibility tech into disco light shows. But the real masterpiece, we took their own neural trackers and reversed the programming. Now, instead of broadcasting fear responses from prey to hunter, they'd transmit overwhelming panic signals back to the hunting parties. A little taste of their own medicine, you might say. Hidden resistance fighters, the very best from a dozen different colonies, took their positions in the surrounding wilderness. Each one was equipped with customized gear designed to exploit every weakness I discovered during my time in the lodge. Remember, I told them during the final briefing, now back in my human form, they're expecting super soldiers. So that's exactly what we'll give them. Just not in the way they're imagining. We planted civilians throughout the colony, combat androids designed to act as perfect bait. The Kraz Thul scans would show them as genuine humans, complete with heartbeats and neural patterns. They'd perform exactly as expected, running, hiding, showing fear, until they didn't. The last piece fell into place when I resumed my Centaurian disguise and joined the hunting party's final planning session. Vex Thor had arranged the hunters into teams, each assigned to a different sector of the colony. "Lady Zixia," he rumbled, his scales showing that suspicious purple again. "I've saved a place in my personal hunting party for you. I want you to witness history being made." "Oh, honey, you have no idea how right you are about that." "I am honored," I replied, noting how his cybernetic eye lingered on me a fraction too long. He suspected something: his hunter's instincts were too good not to. But his pride wouldn't let him believe that prey could orchestrate something of this magnitude. The evening before the hunt, I sent one final encrypted message to our hidden forces. "Remember, let them think they're winning. Let them get cocky. Let them push deeper and deeper into our territory. Because that's when we'll show them why humans didn't just survive on Earth, we clawed our way to the top of a food chain that included saber-toothed cats and direwolves. Smaller, weaker species before. We've been prey before, and we learned how to become predators." As I watched the Kraz Thul hunting fleet descend toward New Thermopylae, their ships glittering in the dawn light, I couldn't help but smile. Tomorrow, the galaxy's greatest hunters would learn a very important lesson about their favorite prey. Time to play. Lizards. Let's see how you like being on the other end of the rifle. You know that moment in every predator's life when they suddenly realize they've become prey. That beautiful instant when their eyes go wide and their whole worldview shatters. I got to watch it happen to an entire species. It started exactly as planned. The Kraz Thul hunting parties spread through the colony, their advanced technology telling them exactly what they wanted to see: frightened humans scurrying for cover, neural signatures spiking with fear, everything perfectly arranged to stroke their hunters' egos. The first sign that something was wrong came when Team 3 lost contact. Then Team 7. Then 4. Communications malfunction. Vex Thor assured everyone, his scales rippling with the first hints of unease. These enhanced humans must be using some primitive signal jamming. "Oh, sweetie, there's nothing primitive about what we're doing to you." I watched through my crystalline disguise as the perfect hunt began to unravel. The android civilians they'd been chasing suddenly stopped running, stopped breathing, stopped showing neural signatures at all. Then, in perfect synchronization, their heads rotated 180 degrees to face their pursuers. The psychological impact was chef's kiss. "What manner of demons are these?" screamed a young hunter before an EMP burst shorted out his cloaking device, leaving him visible and vulnerable. That's when our snipers began their work. Pop, 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 pop. One shot, one kill. Just like they'd done to us so many times before. But we weren't interested in taking trophies, we weren't monsters after all. I had to admire our resistance fighters' attention to detail. They even used the Kraz Thul's own scoring system, broadcasting their points after each kill. Target eliminated using minimal ammunition, 50 points. Moving target at extreme range, 75 points. Multiple targets with single shot, 100 points bonus. Vex Thor's command group was in chaos. Their neural trackers were now broadcasting fear signals back to them, the combined terror of every human they'd ever hunted, amplified and focused. I watched the mighty hunters stumble and twitch as their own technology turned against them. That's when I decided it was time for the grand reveal. Fascinating hunting technique, I said, letting my crystalline disguise melt away. But I prefer a more personal approach. The look on Vex Thor's face, priceless. His cybernetic eye whirred frantically, trying to process what he was seeing. Impossible. A human. Commander Elena Reyes, I introduced myself with a mock bow. Though you might remember me better as the sole survivor of New Montana. You know, the colony you raided during their harvest festival? Nice touch, by the way. Really sporting of you. His scales shifted through every color in his emotional spectrum before settling on a pale, sickly yellow. The entire time. You were studying us. Honey, we've been studying you since day one. Every hunt, every kill, every piece of technology you so proudly showed off, it all helped us prepare for this moment. Around us, the carefully orchestrated chaos continued. Hidden speakers played back recordings of Kraz Thul hunt commentators, now narrating their own species' deaths. Oh, magnificent form as the human uses the hunter's own plasma rifle against him. Such poetic justice. That's going to score high with the judges. The remaining hunting parties were trying to retreat, only to find their ships unresponsive courtesy of those quantum transmitters I'd planted. Each vessel now displayed a continuous loop of their own hunting footage, showing humans being slaughtered for sport. You're insane, Vex Thor snarled, reaching for his weapon. We are the apex predators of the galaxy. No, I corrected him. Already moving. You're just the latest in a long line of species that made the mistake of thinking humans were easy prey. Did you really think you were the first? Honey, our entire history is written in the bones of predators who underestimated us. The fight that followed was almost anticlimactic. All that fancy hunting tech, all those cybernetic enhancements, and in the end it came down to this: a human with a grudge and a very sharp knife. This is impossible, he gasped, purple blood seeping from multiple wounds. We studied you, tracked you, and that was your mistake, I explained, circling him. You studied us as prey. You should have studied us as predators. Did you know that before we developed spears, humans used to hunt by literally chasing animals to death? We'd track them for days, wearing them down until they simply couldn't run anymore. We called it persistence hunting. I gestured at the chaos around us. This is just persistence hunting on a galactic scale. The last thing the mighty Grand Hunter Vex Thor saw was a human standing over him, rating his death on his own scoring system. Arrogant prey taken down through superior strategy, 1,000 points. Game over. Across New Thermopylae, the scene repeated itself. The hunters became the hunted, their own technologies and traditions turned against them. We broadcast the entire thing across their hunting networks, letting every Kraz Thul in the galaxy watch as their invincible hunters fell. The message was clear: mess with humanity, and we won't just fight back, we'll turn your own game against you, beat you at it, and make you watch as your whole worldview comes crashing down. By dawn, it was over. The greatest hunt in Kraz Thul history had ended with their complete defeat. As I stood among the surviving resistance fighters, watching the sunrise, someone asked me if I thought they'd learned their lesson. I laughed. Honey, if they haven't learned it by now, we'll just have to keep teaching them. After all, I picked up one of their neural trackers and tossed it onto Vex Thor's corpse. ... Humans are very, very good teachers. And we're even better hunters. You'd think after watching his entire hunting party get systematically dismantled, Vex Thor would have learned some humility. But no, even with his cybernetics sparking and scales dulled with fatigue, the bastard still thought he could win. That's the problem with apex predators, they don't know how to lose until it's far too late. Let's settle this properly, he snarled, discarding his malfunctioning weapons. Predator to prey, hand to hand. I smiled, dropping my own gear. First smart thing you've said all day. Though you've got your labels backward. We circled each other in his trophy room aboard his command ship. Around us, the preserved heads of his victims watched, human, alien all species that had made the fatal mistake of being lesser than the mighty Krasthul. You think you've won, he laughed. That familiar garbage disposal sound now ragged with pain. Even if you kill me, there are thousands more hunters. We will never stop. That's funny, I said, dodging his first swipe. That's exactly what the saber-toothed tigers would have said if they could talk. Same with the direwolves, the cave bears, every apex predator that thought they had humanity figured out. His cybernetic arm lashed out faster than any natural movement. But I'd studied those enhancements during my time undercover. Knew their patterns, their limitations. More importantly, I knew their weakness: they couldn't adapt mid-strike. I slipped inside his guard, using techniques perfected by human martial artists over thousands of years. While the Krasthul were lounging at the top of their food chain, we were developing ways to turn bigger, stronger opponents' strength against them. You understand nothing, he roared, his claws raking the air where I'd been a second before. We are the ultimate hunters. No, I said, slamming my elbow into a nerve cluster I'd identified during my studies. You're just the current ones. Humanity. We've been playing this game since we lived in caves. His next strike went wide as his cybernetic arm glitched. I used his momentum against him, a simple judo throw that sent him crashing into his precious trophy wall. The preserved heads rained down around him. You want to know the real difference between us, I asked, maintaining distance as he struggled to rise. You hunt for sport. For pride. For trophies. Humanity, we learned to hunt because the alternative was extinction. Every technique we developed, every weapon we created, was born from necessity. He lunged again, desperate now. I sidestepped and grabbed one of his fallen trophies, the skull of his first human kill. The one he'd bragged about during my infiltration. The crack of bone against cybernetic enhancement was deeply satisfying. The thing about being prey, I continued, watching him stagger, is that it teaches you everything about being a predator. While you were celebrating your inherent superiority, we were learning, adapting, evolving. His cybernetic eye was malfunctioning now, the targeting display fritzing. What are you? We're what happens when prey decides enough is enough. We're what happens when the hunted study the hunters and think, we can do better than that. The final blow wasn't fancy, just a precisely targeted strike at the junction between organic tissue and cybernetic enhancement, the weakness I'd noticed during all those fascinating technical discussions. As Vex Thor collapsed, his scales fading to the grey of death, I knelt beside him. Here's the punchline to this cosmic joke: humanity was never the prey you thought we were. We were just better at playing the part than you were at playing the predator. I stood, surveying the room of fallen trophies. Each one represented a life taken for sport, for pride, for the simple pleasure of proving superiority. Game over, I whispered to the empty room. Then I activated the broadcast I'd set up earlier, transmitting to every Krasthul hunting lodge in the galaxy. Attention all hunters. Humanity is officially changing the rules of engagement. From now on, we're no longer playing the prey. And trust me, you really don't want to see how we play the role of predator. Because, honey, we've had millions of years of practice at both.